Welcome back to the COS Business Podcast, the #1 podcast in Colorado Springs. I'm sitting here today with a special guest, Marcus Alvarado.
You got it right.
Yeah, with Painted Red Productions and the People's Tiny House Festival.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so this is exciting actually because I guess kind of want to announce that you're a business partner on the show too, and that you're going to be helping out the show and like you're all in just as much as I'm all in.
Yeah.
So it's pretty cool, and I think there's going to be some great things that come out of that. And but I want to kind of focus on this episode on about your businesses and about your journey. And before we do that, actually, let's have you explain a little bit about what you do.
Just in general?
Yeah, in like a couple sentences.
Yeah.
Whether you want to talk about the People's Tiny House or Painted Red Productions or even Recon.
Yeah, over-encompassing. I'm a marketer by trade, but an entrepreneur. I have a couple different companies, but I just love to see businesses grow. So by virtue of that, I like to have a lot of other businesses.
Yeah.
Marketing
allows businesses to grow.
Yeah. Turns out if you're good at marketing, you can do a lot of different things.
Yeah.
I started Painted Red Productions 3.5 years ago, where I do my event out of People's Tiny House Festival. I also have a marketing agency I run in the wake of the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, events weren't happening at all in 2020 and some of this year as well.
That's your main gig. That's your
my
main
gig,
right?
Yeah. And we'll go into a little bit about like how I got started with that and like how that came to be. But so in the wake of the pandemic and having an event that shuts down, it's only an annual event, the People's Tiny House Festival. I decided to bring together a couple of guys. That Recon marketing was in May of 2020 that I'd started, and it's becoming like the new bread and butter for what I do, just because I was a marketer by trade all the way.
Yeah.
From the beginning of 2010. So the fact that I have a marketing agency now is just something that I've always wanted to do, and it's just the perfect timing. When everything was shut down, my main business. And I love it. Yeah,
that's great, man. Well, let's get more into that. First, we'll roll the intro music, and then we'll get started.
All right, man. Cool.
This is a show where we have real conversations with entrepreneurs and business owners who are mostly in Colorado Springs doing things in the community of Colorado Springs. And this is usually where I check the cameras too, so it gives me a chance to ease my mind.
You, man, you're like a little multitasker.
Yes.
This is going to be good.
Soon I'm going to have the keyboard over here for my computer and be hitting 1 and 2 back and forth whenever whoever's talking. And learning that is going to be like learning how to ride a bike, I think. There's going to be times where I forget to switch it, but once I get it down, I think it'll be next level. Or maybe I could just bypass that and have someone, doing that.
You're going to have like your own Jamie, just like Joe Rogan
has.
has.
Essentially. Jamie switches the cameras, and you can actually set that up to which microphone's being activated, because, this thing separates who's talking. So when I'm doing that on the computer through OBS, I can have it running through 2 different things. If I do it right, it's really confusing. I got to make sure I get everything streaming right and make sure mic 1's mic 1 and mic 2's mic 2.
Right.
And let OBS know that mic 1 is mic 1. That way I can tell the camera to be like, when this microphone's activated, activate camera 2.
That's
if
cool.
2 people are talking at once, activate camera 3. So it shows the whole, like both of them, if that happens. Hopefully that doesn't happen, but sometimes there's a little bit of overlap. If I'm giggling, any kind of like audio overlap that happens, and that happens, it'll switch to camera 3. And that's some pretty badass shit.
That's really cool, man.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, man. I was teaching a class last night, and I said the word shit, and I was like, oops, stuff.
You live and you learn, man.
Yeah,
like you have your own little flavor, and that's just going to be, it's always going to seep out through your personality.
No, for sure.
So think about like Mark Cuban. He's always dropping F-bombs. I mean, he's one of the most fine owners of the NBA, right?
Yeah.
There's a reason, because his personality comes out so much, and people love him for it. So it's just the same thing with you. People are just going to learn to love you for who you are, and when you're not authentic, that's a whole different thing, and people are going to notice.
I can try to censor it, out of respect, so it doesn't like throw anyone off guard. But sometimes it slips out. I was like, sometimes we gotta focus on the positive shit. I just said that. It just popped it out, and then it helped me. It was cool when the person hosting the class, they said they said a cuss word later on after I did. So I was like,
okay. Feel more at home. That's funny, man.
Maybe feel at least guys, I don't want to disrespect her students,
Yeah.
And I was going into that as a guest, so I wanted to make sure I was respectful.
Yeah.
But yeah,
that's cool, man. You're spreading your wings. That's good though. People are starting to see you as like a thought leader in specific things that you're doing in your trade. So that's super special. That's
exciting.
That's a good moment in your life when you're like finally things are being validated from what I'm doing all these years of no one knowing, locked away doing your craft, and finally people are like, hey, like I see what you're doing. I consider you a professional. Can you help with this? Can you help with that? Can you teach this? Yeah,
and that feels good. Like being asked that, it's like a little bit of imposter syndrome can come in if you've never done it before. It's like who am I?
Yeah,
and that's typical, I think, with anything that you start. And I've gotten to a level where I feel pretty comfortable. I remember the first time I did a gutter. It's like the first day on the job, like you have no idea what to do, and it's just like it's like kind of a little bit of anxiety that comes with that. But over time, it's like you really get good at what you do. And like I remember the first time I shot a video for a client. I've done over 300 personal projects at that point, but doing one for a client, it was like I felt like I was the first day on the job. It was crazy, and it was cool because they paid me.
It's an anxiety thing, right? Yeah. When you finally get paid for something that you've already been doing for so long, it's just a whole different thing, right? Mm-hmm. I always operated with a lot of ignorance on fire, so I always thought like, oh yeah, like I'm supposed to do this. This is what I've always meant. I never really had that imposter syndrome.
Okay.
But like looking back, sometimes I actually do get nervous now, tripping up. I'm like, oh, this is like my reality. I'm actually doing these things now. Okay. Oh gosh, then I start stumbling. But like when I was younger, I didn't really have that as much. I don't know I don't know where that confidence came from. But yeah, there was a lot of ignorance on fire, and it helped me like make a lot of waves young, and that was really cool, especially being from Colorado Springs.
Yeah.
Where it's the one town where you can be somebody really quickly if you just put in the effort and you're consistent. Mm-hmm. People notice you, and your name starts to like rise to the top. It rises to the surface, which is pretty cool. That's why I love this town so much.
I like the ignorance on fire thing, and I have a bit of that too, and that's why I'm able to learn things and do a bunch of different stuff. Mm-hmm. But sometimes I just get that a little bit of imposter syndrome. But I mean, it doesn't last long usually. But it can. It depends, So I get that, and I think that's the reason. Like, that's the reason why I'm able to do so much different things, and I don't even realize it. But I didn't even realize it until one of my friends said it. Like, man, you just don't fear. You just go out and do things, and it's like there's actually a lot of fear too going on with that. It just looks like that from the outside.
Dude, totally. Well, it's like hardwired in you. Just me getting to know you for the past few months. You are a hustler.
Okay, yeah.
Like just us even getting together and doing this business together, I've realized, hey man, like I need you to do this, and this. Mm-hmm. You're done by that night. If I'm like, here's your marching orders, I'm expecting you to get it done by like the Friday, and it's Sunday night. You get it done Sunday night. I'm like, whoa, okay.
Same with you, and I noticed that, and that's why I was like, hell yeah, this is gonna be a great partnership, because I noticed that about you, and it's like that's the cool thing about a partnership is you can keep that accountability going too. Because if I see that you're doing that, it's gonna motivate me to make sure that I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing too. So it's like a cool. Because if I'm doing it all by myself, I'm the only one that's like telling me like I got these deadlines, and I still try to keep things. I still try to maintain a good ship for myself, but
dude, you've done a great job. I've had partnerships in the past, not only Recon, but with another business I started way back when, and it's not easy. It's not easy holding each other accountable. It's not easy going into partnerships with friends because it's a different type of relationship. Business in a lot of ways doesn't have too much of the emotional pull that you can bring into every conversation. Sometimes it's just business. My mom always, I was growing up, she always used to say, like, son, business is business, meaning like, you got to hold being offended by something somebody might say who's your partner and be like, hey dude, that really, like, I think this needs to go this way. I didn't think you did a good job on this, or hey, you need to redo this. It's hard not to get like sensitive with that.
Especially if you have your friend, if it's someone that's like your best friend, then
totally
you have like, I wouldn't say emotional baggage, but you do have an emotional past. So some of that stuff can get brought up it's like, yeah, I understand that, because the only other business partner I had was my best friend, and it never worked. We tried it like multiple times. There's just, there's always a conflict, something that happened, and, that's just the way it is.
That's good, man. Well, hopefully we can keep this thing copacetic in the way that we do things. I think it's been working really well. I mean, thank you so much for respecting my opinion, too, as a marketer and operations guy, and the things that I do. I really appreciate that, because this validates me, and some of the things I might even tell us, or the things you tell me, like I definitely hold there's a lot of weight in your opinion on a lot of things that you're doing for us on the partnership, and I appreciate that.
Yeah.
That's what a partnership is. It's compromise in a lot of ways and understanding. Here's my lane, here's your lane, but there might be some times when we cross over those things, but we're going to respect each other at the end of the day, no matter what.
For sure. And I try my hardest to make sure I'm aware of how other people are feeling when it goes into when I go into things. But sometimes, when it's not you, sometimes you can overlook certain things. And if that ever happens, I hope that we can, we can what's the word I'm looking for there? Make sense out of the situation, I guess.
Yeah, man, overcome those things for the better good. That's the thing about as you get older with wisdom, right? You just kind of understand the big picture with things. Not everything needs to be a big battle. Some things you gotta pick and choose your battles. And that comes with age. That comes with experience. You get a lot more wisdom, especially in the business world.
We've got about 60 years of experience on the earth together.
Yeah, for sure. And I know that you've been an entrepreneur for quite some time now, and so have I. I know we're both young. But I just hit 30 in January, which is really funny because I've essentially been an entrepreneur since I was 18 or 19 years old. So a decade in, I'm still pretty dang young, but I definitely understand, a lot more about business. And not only that, I feel the wisdom coming into me and different things. I know where to turn in certain situations, when to stop or whatever it might be. And I'm really proud of myself for that. I didn't know what it would look like being at 30. Would I be like, okay, I don't know anything? If anything, this shows me that there's so much more to learn, which it has. But it's also there's been a lot of things I've learned that I'm just so proud of, and I look back, I'm like, yeah, I am 30 and I have a lot of experience and I do know what the heck I'm doing. That's a beautiful thing to have that.
Yeah.
It's not only external validations from people who are like, oh, Marcus, you do this, you do that. It's no, I have the validation to be like, I know what I'm doing. That's really cool,
Yeah, no, for sure. And you build that up.
Yeah, no, for sure, man, for sure. But I wanted to tell you a little bit about Painted Red Productions, kind of how it got started. So it's a kind of a crazy story. I'm going to kind of keep it a little bit short, but I was a marketer, and even in college, I went to UCCS, University of Colorado Springs here locally, and I had a club that I helped create called the Marketing Club at UCCS. And it's still known now as the American Marketing Association. It's like a chapter of that. A lot of major universities have chapters for that.
Okay.
But it was a student-ran club. I just wanted to have young college kids get real experience in the real world and have real clients. That was my only thing. Obviously, that's nice for a business because you don't have to pay us.
Yeah.
We're just a club doing marketing work for you.
Okay. So
I started gaining some traction and getting my name known in the community with that. And it was oh man, I'm starting to get known out there. And I end up started taking some clients in the summer and having my own clients, paid clients, while I was running this club. And long story short, I ended up working for a builder here locally that was going to have a house that being presented in what's called the Parade of Homes. It's presented by the HBA. So every major city in the U.S. has a Parade of Homes. You get tickets. You get to tour all these mansions.
Parade of Homes.
It's called the Parade of Homes. Okay. Yeah, and they might call it something different in every city, but by and large, it's the same concept. You get tickets. It's $10 to get tickets, and it's 17 days long. And you can go tour houses throughout the whole city, and they can be any price model of houses. There's houses ranging from 250 to 400 or whatever, all the way up to the big mega mansions, right? Well, this guy that I ended up working for, he was featuring the very first tiny house to be featured in a Parade of Homes ever.
Okay.
And he gives me this whole speech, and it was 2.5 hour speech about this and that, tiny houses and everything like that. It's gonna be featured in this thing called the Parade of Homes. This is my interview, right?
What year is this?
This is 2014.
Okay.
Yeah. And so I was, by the time he was done, I was like, oh, that's really cool and everything, but what's a tiny house? You probably should have started step 0. I don't even know what a tiny house was.
Yeah,
what the heck is that? I had no idea. And long story short, ended up marketing that summer for him. It was an internship kind of client relationship thing, but I was by and large an intern for him. And we ended up winning this big old prestigious award that comes from the Parade of Homes. Everybody comes and votes and what their favorite model is. We ended up winning the People's Choice Award in our category that year.
Nice.
Ticked off a lot of builders in Colorado Springs. Awesome. I loved it because it's something that was just completely out of the box. You have these houses you tour, you put booties on your shoe, which are those little things that go over your shoes, or you take your shoes off to go in these houses. Ours is we're marketing as like, this is a tiny house. We had like bocce ball going on and like root beer and like kids running in and out. We didn't care about taking your shoes off. We were just like completely out of the box. Placed this tiny house up at the Mining Museum up at Northgate, and it made a killing. It was like, this was the 60th annual HBA Parade of Homes, and the turnout for people coming was up like 15-20% than any other year. So it was like a big smashing success. We ended up winning the People's Choice Award of that year. Like I said, ticking people off.
Why did it tick people off?
Because there was like builders in that category who always have won every year. And here we come with like this tiny house, and they never even heard of a tiny house, and we take the award. They've been like, 15 years running, winning.
Yeah.
So like, who the heck are you? This is not even a real house. Like, this house can fit in our closets of our big old houses and all this stuff. So it ruffles some feathers, which is kind of cool, because it's like, hey, we're out of the box. We're just shaking things up. It was a cool first project for me. Long story short, there was like a big meeting at like 4 months after the Parade of Homes. They wanted to kick us out. They're like, you're not a real builder. This is not a real house. This is not even legal. Who are you? Long story short, we end up staying in the show for 2015. So they didn't kick us out. And we were like, you know what? We're going to do our own event in the opening weekend of the Parade of Homes. And we're just going to invite builders from all across the country. Back then, there was actually still tiny house builders, even though this is like way back in beginning of 2015. And we're going to have our own little event. And if it has a couple thousand people show up, that 3-day weekend we do it, then cool. That's awesome. Long story short on that, 40,000 people show up for it.
Wow.
And I'm the guy heading the whole thing. He's like, this is like the day after Christmas. He called me in 2014. And he's like, this is my big idea. I was like, this is awesome. Let's plan this thing out. It was called the Tiny House Jamboree. And it was huge. Really big. People.
You got people all across the nation?
So all 50 states represented and 14 countries came. It was huge. And I mean, we can go all day about what that crazy event was, but it like had a segment in the New Yorker. The following year, they did like an hour-long special on HGTV called Journey to the Tiny House Jamboree. Crazy, right? Smashing success. We captured lightning in a bottle. It's like a once-in-a-lifetime thing. So cool. And
for sure.
Kind of like launched like me having some self-validation and marketing and doing things. And not only that, putting an event on. I never knew how to do an event,
But now you understood how it works, though.
Yeah.
Okay.
Baptism by fire, man.
How did you figure it out?
Got baptism by fire, man. Yeah, and it was I had like my mom was an executive in the newspaper industry, so I have a lot of experience being very well organized and somewhat understanding business and how it is to operate a business. So with an event, you have to be super organized because you have to have all these things that come out. And for an event like this, there's going to be vendors there with their little tents set up. There's going to be builders there with their spots placed up. There's going to be food trucks there with their spot placed up. So I had to like figure out the logistics on that. I kind of had an idea of like how to do like planning for events before. But I was just going, I literally had no idea what I was doing. I just figured it out.
Any Google searches?
Plenty. Always. Entrepreneurs always do that. YouTube searches, whatever it might have been, man. Yeah. Sure, I mean, we're expecting 5,000 that weekend, 40,000 showed up. So you can only imagine.
You can only learn from experience on that. Like.
Yeah. I mean, we should have been shut down. We should have been shut down because people couldn't even park there. They had to like park on the side of the road. They were parking on the side of I-25, getting their car towed. They were from like out of country. They were telling me like, where did our car get towed? I'm like, I don't know. I have no idea. They're like, well, it's a rental car. So it's just crazy, right? Should have been shut down because it was just so crazy. But ended up doing that for a second year. Like I said, it was at the...
And now you knew, like, okay, we got to figure out parking.
The second year we had a lot more figured out. We're like, we need to go to the Air Force Academy.
And you also knew, you didn't expect that many people to come the first time either. So.
No idea.
So you also probably figured out how to expect the right number.
So what we figured out, which is crazy, even this is still standing true today. And again, I wasn't running the event back then, as far as like it wasn't my company. I was just the right hand guy doing it. But what we figured out is those who pre-registered, whatever that number is, it's usually like 8 to 10 times that show up at the event.
That's opposite of like a house party.
Right? Yeah, right? You're like, okay, like you invite 15 people to a house party, maybe like, okay, 7 show up or whatever.
Yeah.
It's a different story with this, man. And we didn't do any boosted posts. We didn't do anything for this first event. It just went viral organically. It was crazy. 100,000 plus reach on a lot of our posts. It was like at the height of like the Facebook algorithm of pushing content out there. And it was just perfect timing with that and the tiny house movement. So long story short, after all that, ended up working for an agency up in Fort Collins, getting probably my doctorate in marketing up there because I had a book of clients, 50 plus clients, had a book of like, clients that paid $80,000 a month to the agency. So it was a big book of people. But what I found out there is there's no way one man, even if I did have a team, but there's no way that we can handle, 50 to 80 clients for one person. It doesn't make any dang sense, right? So I decided, okay, well, I'm going to save up money. I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to do another tiny house event, and it's going to be my event. So in comes Painted Red Productions. Start that up. I'm working this crazy job where I have so many different clients, working 60 hours a week doing that, and I'm planning my own festival again. Pitch it to the Air Force Academy, summer of 2018, ended up putting it on. It's called the People's Tiny House Festival. Another huge success, 20,000 people in my inaugural year doing that one. Following year, 30,000, and then just kind of off to the races. Now we have big sponsorships, and we have a lot of things in place.
Yeah.
Have a big team that helped me put it on every year, contracted. And
then in comes 2020.
And then in comes 2020, where like the world stops. I actually had all my sponsors already done. And it was like 5 months out from my event or whatever it might be. Ended up postponing it to September. I think it was originally supposed to be in June of 2020, and then I pushed it back to September, and then ended up ultimately canceling the event. Which
when you cancel, does that mean you have to give all the money back?
Yeah, it's crazy. A lot of it rolled over, but
rolled over.
A lot of the people who held tickets, about 1,000 people who pre-registered, ended up getting refunds. A couple of vendors refunded, a couple of sponsors. By and large, the sponsors and vendors hung on till this year. Okay. And this year it's going to be in Loveland, Colorado, July 17th and 18th. So it's not a 3-day event anymore. It's a 2-day event. But it's like this gorgeous, gorgeous event complex.
When you pay for the venue,
in Loveland.
When you paid for the venue in 2020, did that money just couldn't get that back?
Got that refunded.
Okay.
That was like the one thing I got refunded out of the whole thing.
And that's a huge part of the cost of putting on the gig, right?
The craziest thing about it is once you get your sponsors, you start putting that money to work for you to put on an event. So what I ran into was I got all my sponsorship money. I started putting that money to work for marketing, for equipment, for payroll.
So that was the money that evaporated.
So that money was like a half spent, and then we don't have an event. Well, I can't refund everybody because obviously I'm putting that money to work to put on an event that never happened.
Yeah, because a lot of the money comes in during the event too.
Correct. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So an event like that, you have vendors who pay to be there. You have sponsors who almost cover the whole expenses of the whole event. Mm-hmm. And then you have the ticket holders. So there's 3 streams of income that come from an event of that size.
Yeah.
It's one of the largest events in Colorado. It's a big event. And there's people coming from all over the world still for it. So it has a large economic impact. So there's a lot of things to figure out with an event like that. So yeah, it was hard, man. It was hard for me to kind of pivot. And something that, it's your baby. As you know, with the business, it's your baby. You don't want to ever call it quits, especially, my personality type. I don't quit on anything, man. So that was a very hard pill to swallow for sure. But again, in comes Recon Marketing. Started it up with 3 other partners with that one. That one's going very well. It's a social media management company. We do digital marketing on a lot of different fronts as well. And then some reputation management for companies as well. And then now we just opened up a door to consulting too.
Yeah.
So lots of work on there, but thank goodness I got some great partners helping me out on that front.
Is this a lot of the same stuff you were doing working up in Fort
Collins?
Collins with the marketing agency?
A little bit different because they do have social media management up there for that agency, but it's not like the thing they spearhead with. It's more so digital
SEO
marketing. They do, the main thing is advertising. So Facebook, Instagram, Google, learning how to, everybody's licensed to do that. That's what kind of moves the needle for that company because they need a lot of revenue to do that. So you had a creative
team that was under you that graphic designers and videographers and stuff like that.
Yeah, I would essentially direct them to do what my goal was. Like, hey guys, here's the video clips I actually want put together. Here's an example of them. Can you make this happen? Here's the verbiage. Here's the call to action. Here's how many clips I want. Make it happen or whatever it might be. So I was the guy just kind of directing it, and that was the main point of contact for the client. So the client called, they're like, Marcus, what's going on in this video? I'm like, well, my videographer's doing this, this, and that. So it was a lot. And now imagine doing that for like 50 plus clients. Nightmare, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's crazy. So Recon
They needed to have more people to split up the 50, essentially.
Yeah, I think they just needed less clients per like main marketer. That's what I mean. Really, like maybe like realistically like 12 to 15 clients per, and that's still a lot. Yeah.
Well, if you ever scale up to that level, then to take that into account.
Oh, yeah, and that's why we do what we do with Recon. It's a very different business model, and we focus more so on social media management.
Yeah.
There's a lot of tools that a lot of marketing companies don't even use. They're just focusing on the ads. Well, think about, like, as we were talking about earlier, all the different tools for just Instagram, right? You got
our reel, the one I recently posted, did 4,000 views in like a day.
It's insane because you use Reels, yeah?
Yeah, exactly. And that's algorithm, it pushes it. And like that's advertising. Like, but it's also managing the content, and like it's interesting because that was a free thing to do. Like, it didn't cost anything to do that besides time.
Earn traffic. Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, there's so many different tools. Those platforms are going to reward you for using their new tools too. So if they're introducing Reels on Instagram, they're going to reward you with more reach because you're an early adopter. They want you to be,
and they're trying to
those
compete
tools.
with TikTok as well. And TikTok already does grant you a lot of easy exposure, essentially.
Yeah.
And so, no feature on Instagram existed that just so willingly gave out impressions, I guess.
Well, look what I was telling you about when I was doing my very first event. We didn't boost any post. We didn't put any money towards it. Look at the exposure we got. Look at the size of the event.
Oh, yeah, you did tell me about that. Yeah.
That's like, what Facebook was, and that was Facebook already kind of going through maturity, but that was Facebook 7 years ago.
Yeah.
Look at the rewarded impressions you got and the reach you got from that. I mean, that's what TikTok is. That's what these new tools that they're trying to utilize on Instagram do. Snapchat even has some things that they have as well.
Yeah. So I actually have a few views on there. Yeah. Yeah. Snapchat's been innovating with like a real kind of thing too. They're actually, I don't know if you know it, but they're giving like I think it was $1 million a day away, granting it to like the top content of that day.
Oh wow, really?
Yeah, like it's split up to like 100 people. I don't know if they're still doing that, but they were doing that for a while, and like I was like, oh crap, I gotta get on that.
Well, I think it's kind of cool when you work with AI, right? Because you have like, well, what's our beta testing? Oh, it's just the early adopters, right? So like all the folks who are using Reels on Instagram now, I mean, those are just early adopters. They're doing all the beta testing really for them. So of course you would pay them because they're like, oh, Andrew Hasley just figured out something, to get more reach. That's kind of cool. He's utilizing this thing. We're going to write that down. He's beta testing it for us and reward him to do it. It's the same thing,
Yeah, I had a few clips get up to, one was like 300,000 on Snapchat, but it wasn't my original content. So some of the bigger ones would get taken down. I was just testing it. I was basically mining content out of TikTok and then putting it onto Snapchat just to test and see how things are working. And it's actually interesting how Snapchat has it set up too. You can only post onto their snapshot or whatever it's called, screenshot or something like that. Not screenshot, but you can only post it like every 3 to 5 minutes. I forget what it was. So that way it slows down anyone trying to mine content like I was, essentially.
That's interesting. You're a tinkerer, man. You like to tinker. You almost have like that engineering personality where you just tinker with different things. I've noticed that about a relationship. You'll tell me something that's like like a very minute change in something, or something like a little pivot that you're doing with this, and that, dimensions of this, whatever it might be with video content. Like you're on it, man. That's awesome. That's a good thing. I'm
always testing it. Yeah.
That's a good thing, man. That's a hallmark of a good entrepreneur for sure. Is like figuring out those little tiny movements to make something work. Those little pivots. That's super important. That's really cool, man.
Yeah. So what was that content that really blew up for the first festival? What was that?
Just a poster.
It was a poster? Okay.
Yeah, it was a poster. I didn't want it says,
but it was filling a need that wasn't there either. A lot of people wanted to really figure out what tiny houses were, but they'd never seen one in person, and this event allowed them to do that. I've had some thoughts about this walking and driving, So.
Oh, it's a very big problem, man, because it's...
oh, no, we just cut off for a minute. I usually catch it.
We got too much good stuff.
What was the post? What was the post? It was a poster?
Yeah, so it was a poster, but like you were saying before, it was answering a question, right? So like people are more so interested in why is the tiny house movement so prevalent? Why is it so important? It's an affordable living piece. It's folks who are not able, they're getting priced out of the market that they're in. I mean, we live in Colorado, we understand that very well, right? So it's not people who love tiny houses, it's people who are trying to downsize their lifestyle. It's an affordable living movement. So what is downsizing? Well, that means something different to everybody. That's why when people are like, oh, that's not a tiny house, that's 400 square feet. Or that's not, it's like downsizing is something different for everybody, you know?
Okay,
some people live in vans. Some people can live in a tiny house on wheels. Some folks can downsize from like a 5,000 square foot house to a 1,200 square foot house. And that's a big move for them. That's what we're talking about here. Is almost like making a smaller footprint in your lifestyle.
There is something though that's exciting about a tiny house though. Like something that's just like
the showstopper, man.
I don't know. I don't like it's something about living in a small space that has everything that a big space would have. There's something that it does to me, at least I know. And it's like building a treehouse. I don't know, like there's something magical about it, and I can't really pinpoint it yet. I'll have to think about it and ruminate on it.
That's a good way to put it though, because I mean, if you think about a tiny house, people are saying like, well, you know, if you break it down per square footage, those things are way more than a normal house would be, with a given square footage of a tiny house. But in a tiny house, every square inch has a function. It's a lot different than a house where you have a random room that can be, you know, your dining room or living room or whatever. Every square inch of a tiny house has a function, has a purpose. Mm-hmm. So, and that's cool because like you were saying about the DIY piece, that's really big. I mean, that's why there's so many people who are doing their own stuff, you know, because they're like you. They're like, it just excites me. It's like the growing up building treehouse or something like that, you know? No, for sure.
A little hut or whatever, a little fort. Yeah, I built a few forts when I was younger. They were fun. We actually had a staircase up to one of our tree houses that we built.
What?
Because we found like this just staircase. We don't know where we found it, but it was like one of those like you can move it. Like I don't know, it's like maybe 6 steps. We found some cool stuff. We did some really cool things.
This is back in Kansas City.
It's actually I lived in Arkansas for a couple years.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right, that makes more sense then. Okay.
Does it?
All right. You're a southern guy at heart. Huh? Were you born in Arkansas?
No. I was only there for a couple years.
Oh, okay.
So it's just a very small part of my life actually.
Building tree houses.
But Kansas City the most part. I mean that's just where we built some tree houses and huts at. Had some really cool memories. In the couple years that I was there, actually, we did some cool things. Running around, causing a muck. Running amok.
Yeah, man. Well, I grew up all over the place. Like I was telling you before, my mom was an executive in the newspaper industry. So I was born in California, moved here in Colorado when I was in 94. Or was only here for 3 years, moved to New York. So I got to experience that. My best.
So you're like Tupac.
Yeah, I moved all over, man. East Coast, West Coast. It was good, man.
Nice.
No, for sure. No, it's cool though because you get to see how lifestyles change in those different parts of the country, and just how people's mentality is. It's just so much different. You know, it's just like we're in upstate New York. It was very family oriented. I know, like my best friend, his name was Vinny Michelli. Like that, everybody was Italian up in northern, upstate New York. You know, and it was cool. I think they thought we were Italian or something. I don't know if they knew if I was.
Yeah, Mexican. You kind of look like a little. You could pass as Italian.
I don't know about that, but it was pretty cool though. And like we got to be a little bit more worldly growing up, given my mom's career, and taking her around, kind of like a military family, just getting to know different types of people. It's awesome, man. I think it's so important for people to do that, and in business. You know, who's going to come across you in business, where they from. What they bring to the table, that's very important to know how to handle people given their background, situation, perspective, whatever it might be. I think it's been very beneficial in my adulthood for sure.
And yeah, I don't know very many people from many places, but I did do a different podcast where I talked to people from different parts of the world, and that was interesting. So it allowed me to I guess become more cultured that way.
Oh snap! So what was the precipice of that? Like why did you do that? What itch were you trying to scratch to do that?
I wanted to learn how to make hip hop a career. So I reached out to anyone who was doing it wherever they were in their journey, and I knew that if I wanted to do 5 episodes a week, because that's what I was doing.
Wow!
If I wanted to do that, I'd have to reach out to everyone across the world, just because I was specifically targeting hip-hop artists, and there's only so many hip-hop artists in Kansas City. And, I just wanted to reach out and in order to fill the need, or in order to fill the amount of content I wanted to make, I knew that I needed to expand and open it up to the world. And also it just made more sense for that particular podcast that I was doing.
That's pretty cool. I know you took a lot of homage from Mr. Gary.
Yeah. It was actually his ideas. It's funny. He gives me a lot of ideas for your podcast because he gave me this idea for this podcast.
You act on it.
Yeah.
That's the difference between you and a lot of people. Like you act on it, and now you're so many 100 episodes into this one.
Yeah.
I mean, that's insane, man. Like you've done so much. That's super impressive. It's
inspiring.
Exciting.
I just wanna keep pushing it. And like I was saying the other day to someone, I never intended to go full Joe Rogan. That wasn't my intentions when I started this podcast. It was just to meet people and to just a good way to network and meet people, essentially. But then it became more than that, and I realized that it actually is. It can serve a bigger purpose, and that's where I decided I got excited about it. And when I restarted it up, COVID allowed me to take a step away from it for 4 months, and then I was like, okay, let's step it up. Because it was stressful, even doing it once a week and going to people's offices to film it. And it wasn't perfect. It never is perfect, never will be perfect. But it's just grown essentially. Yeah, I forgot where I was going with that. But yeah, let's talk more about you. This is your episode.
Yeah. So I mean, I just well, that's all. Thank you for sharing that with me, anyways. 'Cause I don't think Joe Rogan was trying to be Joe Rogan too when he started his journey as well.
For sure.
Things just turn into what they turn into, just like my story. I wasn't trying to be an event organizer. Didn't know what I wanted to do. I loved marketing. I probably had an idea that I wanted to do that in my career, but I didn't know necessarily that I'd be an event organizer for one of the largest events in Colorado. I had no idea.
Mm-hmm.
But I love community. I love sharing things that I create with other people, so it kind of makes sense in retrospect, right? But yeah, I mean, the event now today is still a very large event. It still has projections to be pretty large. We'll see what the given mandates at the time in July will look like in Loveland, Colorado. Yeah. But I mean, it's full steam ahead. I got sponsorships for it. We got builders there. We got vendors who are there. We got food trucks are going to be there.
Where's it at?
It's going to be in the Ranch Event Complex in Loveland, Colorado. There's like a big Budweiser event center there. It's this huge. It's a giant fairgrounds, but it's like a really high end one up there.
How far is the drive from here? Downtown Colorado Springs.
Oh, downtown Colorado Springs is probably a little over 100 miles from here.
Okay.
Like exit 160 something or 260 something.
Okay.
So yeah, definitely over 100 miles from
probably
here.
A couple hours.
Yeah, an hour and a half if I'm driving, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, if you take 100 and it makes sense. Yeah. So an hour and a half would make sense, but I just like to stretch it a little bit, just in case you stop or I don't know why it would take 2 hours. But
Yeah, Denver going through Denver.
Why Loveland this year?
I used to live in northern Colorado, as I was saying before. I used to live in Fort Collins, which is right north of Love. They're very close. They're attached. Love the market, know the market. A lot of the builders that we have are actually up there. The problem we're running into in Colorado Springs was that we just don't have enough space for the size of our event with the given parking and the size of the event itself. So most events you do here, I mean, there's going to be definitely great parking and probably plenty of parking, but for my event I need both, a lot of parking and a lot of space. My event
you're
itself,
you're an outside event,
yeah, it's 10 acres just for the event, not including the parking, so it's a big event. Those tiny houses, when you get a lot of them, they take up a lot of space. So tried different venues around here and we've kind of outgrown them. And I think with the given space in Loveland, it's right off the interstate, it's gonna have plenty of parking, plenty of space. I'm just really excited to see what happens with it, to be honest with you. But yeah, it sucks because I want to have it in southern Colorado. I want to have it specifically in Colorado Springs. We'll see what happens in future years. But right now, this is the right move to make, so we're making it.
Yeah. I gotta make it up there.
We'd love to have you over there, man. Get some tiny houses. We'll bring some mics over there. We'll do a podcast out of one of the tiny houses.
That'd be interesting. Yeah.
Oh, we could do it, man.
For sure. We gotta bring the wall. Have Brian take it down.
Yeah. Well, Brian will be there too with Jack's axe throwing. He's he's a hallmark of a vendor for our event too. People are expecting him now to be there, and he's gonna have a huge setup, 6-target setup.
Okay.
It's his biggest outdoor one I think he's ever had.
Okay.
So we're hooking it up for a brother, but he's gonna love it.
Yeah, that's gonna be great. Especially him as a vendor there means that if there's thousands of people there, more axes being thrown, more money's being made.
Right? Yeah. Especially because the vendors pay to be there, so they got to make up their money.
Yeah,
right? So,
exactly.
They pay me X amount to be there, but in theory, I'm bringing the crowds. So with the COVID world, we'll see how that looks. I think it's going to be okay. I think it's going to be, I mean, even if I'm assuming we're going to have a capacity mandate for it, but I think it's going to be fine. I think the flow will just be smoother and it won't bottleneck and go crazy. So in past years, it's been crazy at the open of the gate, 10 a.m. in the morning, crowds everywhere. But sometimes it lulls out like 2 or 3 because the event used to go till 6. So I think with our given hours that we have this year, it's probably going to be just a good steady flow of traffic, which is good for everybody. You know what I'm saying? So I think it'll be okay.
Yeah, I think it'll be good, especially since what's the date that it's going to happen?
It's going to happen July 17th and 18th. So
18th.
we'll see what happens. It's a weekend, so it's going to be a Saturday and Sunday. There's going to be camping there too. It's a whole festival, man.
So how does someone go to get a ticket right now?
You go to peoplestinyhousefestival.com/tickets. That easy.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Sweet. Yeah, man.
Yeah, man. It'll be great.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, I think everyone's just, for the most part, over, being shut down. Downtown has been popping for the last couple weekends, I've noticed. And it's just it's like normal. It feels like normal, actually, to be honest. Hearing the music, hearing the rowdy drunk people. So yeah.
Totally, man. We're social animals. If you remember a great experience, it's usually being within a group of people or a crowd of people. Like, you think about concerts, you've been wanting to be an artist or still in pursuit of being an artist. Like, what that does to people when you're all together celebrating something, it's special, man. And that's what I'm trying to get back to, too. I think we're social animals. I'm trying to create that special experience. Whatever the given mandates are, I'm going to fit my mold into that so I can respect whatever the public health orders are. But at the end of the day, I'm trying to create something that's special. And I understand we're social animals and we need to have that connection with one another. So whenever we're able to do that, we're knocking it out of the park, man. We're going to do it.
Yeah. How big do you want to go with this?
The event?
Yeah.
Well, we'll see with COVID.
5 years from now.
5 years from now, if there's no COVID around, I mean...
You're right. It could adapt and evolve.
Yeah. Who knows? Who knows with that? But I mean, there's no reason to not have over 100,000 people from there.
Okay.
No reason at all to have that.
Okay.
I could have done it a couple of years ago probably if I just kept up with it and didn't probably leave to do more marketing stuff. But life has its own things to do things, right?
Yeah.
There's other organizers who do tiny house festivals. I'm not the only one in the country now.
You were, though?
I was once upon a time. Yeah, we were.
Nice.
Actually, those people were once upon a time, a lot of them were volunteers at my event back in the day, which is crazy. Now they're huge.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, it's huge. And again, it's not just tiny houses there. There's going to be van conversions there. There's going to be school bus conversions there. There's going to be yurts there. Because this means something to everybody, something different to everybody. There'll be park model houses there too. So we're just trying to adapt with the times. And yeah, I mean, the proof is going to be in the pudding, but yeah, over 100,000 people there. I want to do that. I want to have a big economic impact for wherever I'm at. Those are my goals because I understand when you bring all those people to a town, there's an economic impact there. And there's hotels, there's restaurants, there's a lot of these things, these attractions that these people are visiting. It's beneficial to have these things in Colorado. I don't want to keep it, in our space. So that's my goal too.
Yeah, because that it can bring a lot of money to a city, especially if there's like 30,000 people coming for a few days,
Yeah, man, it's crazy. Yeah, the first time we ever did it, like we had restaurants actually get mad. It's like, why didn't you tell us or give us a heads up that you were coming? I was like, well, it's my first time doing this. I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm sorry, but yeah, because they got overwhelmed by all the people.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So now there's like a community outreach that has to. So again, right? We're talking about wisdom, experience, all these different things.
Yeah.
Now we know that's there's like a call to arms amongst our team to be like, okay, we got to tell this area we'll be there, and there's gonna be a lot of people there. Yeah.
Plan for that day to have ready. Full staff. You're gonna make a lot of money that day.
Yeah, and we get them on the programming and stuff like that. Their local restaurants and stuff like that. If, say we had something downtown here, we'd be hitting up a lot of the local restaurants here, hotels, all those different things, getting them on our website for people to book or make reservations at, whatever it might be. That's what this whole process is. It's a lot, but it's worth it.
Yeah. Well, cool, man. Is there anything else we should cover before we wrap this up?
Nah, man, I'm just excited. I'm excited to be on the team with you to make this thing so special. I think we're blessed to have this type of opportunity, and
there's some cool things we got going on to the show. I do want to take it to the moon, that being a top 100 podcast, but you can go on Google now and review us. No other podcast is doing that. So I think that's special. That's exciting because not even you can't even go on Google and review Joe Rogan's podcast or any of the top podcasts. No one's thought of that as a way to grow their podcast. So if you guys could go and review our podcast, we are an actual business. You can find it on Google Maps, find it on Google, and leave us a review on that. I think that's going to be huge for us to grow because if no one else is doing that, that means all the SEO it's going to come to us.
Yeah.
For people who are searching podcast on Google, essentially. So hopefully we can see we're doing some things. We're a business podcast doing business things.
Yeah, we're to put this thing on the map. We're building up that digital footprint. So what Andrew says, leave a review if you like us.
Yeah.
That's what we're all about here. We're trying to make an impact here in Southern Colorado.
For sure. All right. Well, this has been the COS Business Podcast. What is it?
The #1 podcast in Colorado Springs.
Yeah. You're like, I knew I threw you off.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we'll see you guys on the next episode, and bye-bye.